Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at views in SQL. I think the best way to really understand views is just to look at a use case, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's say that you're the administrator at a university, and so you have access to this students table, which contains the name, GPA, major, and year of each student at the university. Now, since you're the administrator, of course you have access to all of this sensitive information, but you don't necessarily want everyone in your department to have access to all of this information, because that would mean they have access to every single student's name, their GPA, and maybe some more private information about the student. However, there is some employee or department at your university that frequently needs access to aggregate stats on each major at the university. So one such table that looks like aggregate stats would be if we grouped this data by major, we selected the major, how many students are in each major, and the average GPA within each major. So if we do that statement, we get this aggregate table where we get all the majors, how many students are in each, and the average GPA within each major. Now you want that employee to have access to this, but you don't want them to have access to the entire data. Given what we have now, that's kind of hard to do because we might consider making a second table which looks like this aggregated view, but then we would have to keep the second table up to date with the first table. Like if we insert a new student or delete a student, we have to kind of update that information here too. So what's a way to have this done more dynamically or have it be done for us instead of this becoming a big logistical nightmare? And that's where views come in. So here's how you create a view in SQL. It's really easy. You do this create view keyword, put the name of the view you want to create. In this case, it's called major info because it's just aggregated information about each major. The keyword as. And the next thing you put is literally the SQL query you would like to run to create the view. Notice the SQL query I've highlighted is the same exact SQL query I executed up here to get this view in the first place. So if I do this executes. And now what we've created is a view. Now, it behaves like a table. For example, if I do the statement select star from major info, just like I would do select star from any other table I've created, I get exactly what I would expect, as if this major info thing was a table. But that's not exactly what's happening behind the scenes. So to tell you what's happening behind the scenes, what this does when I do select star from major info, it says, oh, major info is a view. Let me run whatever SQL query was used to create the view. So it's going to go back up here and say, oh, this is the SQL query that was used to create that view. Let me go ahead and run that SQL query now. And whatever that results in is the result I get back here. That's a little bit different from a table because a table is literally stored as data somewhere on my computer. And when I do select star from table, it goes ahead and just fetches all of the data that's statically there, rather than doing anything dynamically like we see up here. The distinction will become clear in just a second. So let's say I now do execute insert another student named R2D2 with GPA 2.9, math major, second year. No problem. So now, what should happen if I do select star from major info? Since I just inserted another math major, I would hope that I have 3 math majors now, and since the GPA was 2.9, which is lower than the current average of the math majors, I should have a little bit of a lower GPA for the math majors. And is that true? Indeed it is. I have 3 math majors now, and I have a little bit of a lower GPA, 3.1 from the 3.2 before. What this basically says is that I inserted a new student into my students' data, and my view, which is called major info, reflects that. It takes that into account. And the reason it's able to take that into account is because when I did this select star from major info, it kind of recreated the data dynamically by rerunning this query that was used to create the view, and that query includes the new student. This is fundamentally different from if I had created this as a whole new table, because those two tables, the students and the major info table, would have been unlinked. They wouldn't have reflected changes in each other. So this is why views are very powerful. So basically 2 of the main advantages of views. One of them is, as we've seen, simplicity. It takes a complex query, like the group by query we had, and just treats it like a table, so that we can just go ahead and execute queries against the view and not have to worry about how it's computed behind the scenes. Another advantage, as we've seen, is privacy. Because now what I can do is just give that employee or department access to this major info view rather than giving them access to the entire table. Even though this major info view is created from the table, that department will not have explicit access to that table, so all the student data will be protected, but the department can still do its job by accessing the view instead. So privacy and simplicity are 2 of the main advantages of views. Now, one of the main disadvantages of views is complexity. notice that even though this group by query is pretty simple, we might have much more complex queries that are used to create views. And every time we try to select data from the view, we have to execute that complex query, which can take quite a while and be a computational hit if that query is too expensive. So those are things to keep in mind. Now, the last things I want to show are what happens if you try to insert data directly into a view. That shouldn't really make any sense because views don't really exist. They're just kind of nicknames for SQL queries you're running behind the scenes. So if I try to insert something like a new major CS with 5 students and average GPA of 3.0 into the view, I get an operational error, which is you can't modify this because it's a view, which is good. And the last thing I want to show you is how do you get rid of a view? Let's say you no longer care about it. It's easy. You just do drop view, put the name of the view, and it's gone. So that was the basics of how to use views in SQL. Until next time.